The spaceship looked like a shooting star as it crashed through Earth's sky. But nobody saw it happen deep in the Amazon rainforest, where thick trees blocked out most of the sunlight. The metal pod hit the ground with a thunderous crash. Birds flew away in panic, and monkeys jumped from branch to branch, scared by the loud noise. Inside the twisted wreckage, Zara moved slowly. Her breathing was weak, and purple blood dripped from cuts on her arms. She had been running for days, trying to escape from people who once called her their queen. Now she was alone, hurt, and very far from home. Zara was not human. She came from a planet called Vixaria, millions of miles away from Earth. Her skin was pale blue like moonlight, and strange silver patterns covered her arms and face. These patterns used to glow bright when she was strong, but now they were fading like dying candles. For 300 years, she had ruled over 7 different planets. People feared her name across the galaxy. When she walked into a room, everyone would bow down immediately. She had armies of soldiers, massive spaceships, and power that most beings could only dream about. But power always comes with a price. Her own council, the people she trusted most, had turned against her. They said she was too harsh, too cruel. They wanted someone else to rule instead. The poison they gave her was slowly killing her from the inside. It felt like fire burning through her veins, making every breath painful. Zara tried to sit up, but her body refused to listen. The crash had made everything worse. Her left leg was twisted in a strange way, and she could taste metal in her mouth. The escape pod was completely destroyed, even if she wanted to leave Earth. There was no way to fix her ship. She looked around at the green forest surrounding her. Everything was so different from her home planet. Here, water fell from the sky, and strange creatures made sounds she had never heard before. The air smelled fresh and clean, not like the recycled atmosphere of her palace ship. Back on Vexaria, the buildings were made of black crystal, and red lightning danced across them. Dark sky. The ground was hard and cold, and most of the planet was covered in ice. Zara missed the familiar coldness of her throne room, where she used to make decisions that affected billions of lives. But those days were over now. The betrayal hurt more than any physical wound. General Crix, her most trusted advisor, had been the one to suggest the poison. Captain Eula, who had fought beside her in countless battles, had voted for her removal. Even young Dex, whom she had raised like her own child, had turned his back on her. They said she had lost touch with her people. They claimed she only cared about expanding her empire and not about the citizens who lived under her rule. Maybe they were right, but it still felt like a knife in her heart. Zara remembered the last conversation she had with Crix. He stood in her throne room, his green eyes filled with disappointment. "You used to care about our people," he had said. "Now you only care about power. The council has made its decision." She had laughed at him then, thinking it was just another challenge to her authority. She had faced rebellions before and crushed them easily, but this time was different. This time, they had been planning for months, maybe years. The poison they used was made from flowers that only grew on her home planet. It was designed specifically to affect her species. No regular medicine could cure it, and she was getting weaker every minute. Rain started falling through the broken canopy above her. The water felt cool against her burning skin, providing the first relief she had felt in days. She tried to catch some drops in her mouth, but swallowing was becoming difficult. Her special abilities were almost gone now. Back home, she could read minds from across a room. She could move objects without touching them and communicate with people on different planets just by thinking about them. Now she could barely sense the small animals running around in the trees above her. She thought about all the mistakes she had made. Maybe she should have listened more to her advisors instead of always giving orders. Maybe she should have spent more time with regular citizens instead of only talking to generals and politicians. Maybe she should have tried to understand why people were unhappy instead of just punishing those who complained. But it was too late for regrets now. The silver patterns on her skin were almost completely dark in her culture. When these markings disappeared completely, It meant death was very close. She had seen it happen to others, but never thought it would happen to her. Zara closed her eyes and tried to remember good times from her long life. She thought about her coronation day, when thousands of people cheered for her. She remembered her first victory in battle, when she felt like she could conquer the entire universe. She thought about quiet moments in her private garden, where exotic flowers from different worlds grew together. In perfect harmony, the pain was getting worse. But she refused to cry. Queens did not cry, even when they were dying alone in a strange forest on an unknown planet. She had lived with dignity, and she would die the same way. As consciousness began to slip away, Zara felt something she had not experienced in centuries: peace. For the first time in her adult life, nobody was asking her to make difficult decisions. Nobody was depending on her to solve their problems. She was just another living being in a vast universe, no different from the insects crawling on the forest floor. Her breathing became slower and slower. The sounds of the forest seemed to fade away, replaced by a strange silence. She prepared herself for whatever came after death, hoping that maybe in the next life she could do better. Just as darkness was about to take her completely, she felt something warm touch her forehead. But her mind was too foggy to understand what it was. She thought it might be her imagination, or maybe the poison was making her hallucinate. Then everything went black. Dr. Alex Chen had been walking through the Amazon for 3 hours when he heard the crash. The sound was so loud that birds stopped singing, and even the constant buzz of insects went quiet for a moment. As a scientist who studied rare plants, he knew every sound the forest usually made. This was definitely not normal. Alex stopped walking and listened carefully. His backpack was heavy with research equipment, sample containers, and enough food for a week-long expedition. He had been coming to this part of the Amazon for 5 years, searching for plants that might help create new medicines. The local guides trusted him because he always respected the forest and never took more than he needed. Curiosity got the better of him. Alex adjusted his hat and started walking toward where the sound had come from. The jungle was thick here, with vines hanging everywhere and roots that tried to trip him with every step. His boots sank into the soft, wet ground as he pushed through branches and leaves. 20 minutes later, he found something that made him stop and stare. There was a huge crater in the ground, surrounded by broken trees and scattered pieces of metal that looked like nothing he had ever seen before. The metal was smooth and had a strange blue color that seemed to change when he looked at it from different angles. But that was not the most shocking thing. In the middle of the wreckage lay a person. At least, Alex thought it was a person at first, but as he got closer, he realized this being was definitely not human. Her skin was pale blue, and intricate silver patterns covered her arms and face like beautiful tattoos. She was tall and thin, with features that were almost human but somehow more elegant. Alex's scientific mind immediately started racing. Was this some kind of undiscovered human subspecies? Had he stumbled upon the greatest discovery in human history? But then he noticed other details that made his theories crumble. Her ears were slightly pointed, her fingers were longer than they should be, and when he carefully lifted her eyelid to check for signs of life, her eyes were a deep crimson color. The logical part of his brain told him to run away and call the authorities. This was way beyond anything he was qualified to handle. But the human part of his heart could not ignore someone who was clearly hurt and dying. Alex knelt down beside her and checked for vital signs. Her pulse was weak but steady. Though it felt different from a human heartbeat, her breathing was shallow, and her skin was cold to the touch. Purple liquid that looked like blood had dried. On several cuts across her body, he noticed something else strange. The silver patterns on her skin were very faint, like they were slowly disappearing. Alex had no idea what this meant, but his instincts told him it was not a good sign. Working quickly, Alex set up a makeshift shelter using a waterproof tarp from his backpack and some fallen branches. He had basic medical training from his time in the military before becoming a scientist, so he knew how to treat wounds and shock. Even though her biology was clearly different, the basic principles of first aid might still apply. He cleaned her cuts with bottled water and applied antiseptic from his first aid kit. The strange thing was that her wounds seemed to respond well to human medicine. The bleeding stopped, and the cuts began to look less severe. This gave Alex hope that maybe he could actually help her. The next challenge was keeping her warm. Her body temperature was much lower than a human's should be, and she was shivering even though she was unconscious. Alex covered her with his emergency blanket and built a small fire nearby, being careful not to let smoke give away their location. For the first night, Alex barely slept. He kept checking on her condition, giving her small sips of water when she seemed responsive and making notes about everything he observed. Her breathing gradually became stronger, and some color returned to her blue skin. On the second day, Alex noticed that the silver patterns on her skin were starting to glow, very faintly. He had no idea what this meant, but he chose to see it as a positive sign. He also discovered that she responded well to certain plant extracts he had been studying. When he applied a paste made from a local healing herb to one of her cuts, the wound healed much faster than it should have. By the third day, Alex had fallen into a routine. He would spend the morning gathering fresh water and edible plants, then return to care for his mysterious patient. He talked to her even though she could not respond, describing the forest around them and explaining what he was doing to help her recover. Alex found himself genuinely caring about this strange being. Maybe it was because he had always been drawn to mysteries, or maybe it was simply human compassion. Either way, he was determined to help her survive, no matter how long it took. He also started wondering about her story. The wreckage around them was clearly some kind of advanced aircraft, far beyond human technology. Where had she come from? Was she alone, or were others looking for her? Was she dangerous, or was she just as scared and confused as he was? On the fourth morning, Alex was preparing breakfast. When he heard a soft sound behind him, he turned around and nearly dropped his coffee cup. The alien woman was awake, and her crimson eyes were staring directly at him. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Alex's heart was pounding as he tried to figure out what to do. Should he speak? Should he run? Should he try to communicate somehow? Then something unexpected happened. The woman tried to sit up, winced in pain, and looked around at the shelter Alex had built. When her eyes returned to his face, he saw something he had not expected to see: gratitude. She did not speak, but somehow Alex understood that she knew he had saved her life. The moment their eyes met, Zara felt something she had not experienced in centuries: confusion. This creature sitting in front of her was clearly not from her world, yet he had somehow kept her alive. His features were soft and kind, completely different from the sharp, angular faces of her own people. Alex watched nervously as she struggled to sit up. He wanted to help but was not sure if touching her was safe. "Easy there," he said softly, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. "You've been hurt pretty badly." Zara stared at him with wide eyes. The sounds coming from his mouth were completely foreign, but his tone was gentle. She tried to access her telepathic abilities to read his thoughts, but her powers were still too weak. All she could sense was that this being did not want to hurt her. Suddenly, ancient instincts kicked in. Zara reached out and grabbed Alex's wrist, trying to drain his life energy like she had done countless times before. But instead of the usual rush of power she expected, she felt nothing. Worse than nothing, his touch seemed to push against her vampiric nature. Like to magnets with the same charge. Alex jerked back in surprise, rubbing his wrist where she had grabbed him. "Okay, I guess you're feeling better," he said, trying to keep his voice calm even though his heart was racing. He had felt something strange when she touched him, like a mild electric shock. Zara looked at her hands in disbelief. Why had her powers not worked? Was she dying? Or was there something special about this creature that made him immune to her abilities? Over the next few hours, they began the slow process of learning to communicate. Alex pointed to himself and said Alex several times until Zara understood he was telling her his name. When she pointed to herself and made a sound that sounded like Zara, Alex nodded and repeated it back to her. Alex pulled out a notebook from his backpack and started drawing simple pictures. He drew the sun and pointed up at the sky. He drew trees and pointed at the forest around them, slowly. Zara began to understand that he was trying to teach her about his world. When Alex drew a picture of a human figure and then pointed to himself, Zara's eyes widened with understanding. She took the pencil from him and drew something that looked like a person, but with the pointed ears and silver markings she had. Then she pointed up at the stars that were barely visible through the thick canopy above. "Them, you're from space," Alex whispered, more to himself than to her, even though he had suspected it from the crashed ship. Hearing confirmation still made his head spin. He was sitting in the Amazon jungle having a conversation with an alien being. If his colleagues could see him now, they would think he had lost his mind. As days passed, their communication improved dramatically. Zara was incredibly intelligent and picked up English words quickly. Alex learned that her people communicated partly through telepathy, which explained why she sometimes seemed frustrated when trying to express complex ideas with words alone. One evening, as they sat by their small campfire, Zara surprised Alex by speaking in broken but clear English. "You saved Zara's life." "Why?" Alex thought about the question for a moment. "Because you needed help," he said simply. "Where I come from, we believe in helping others when they're in trouble." Zara studied his face carefully. In her world, no one did anything without expecting something in return. Power, wealth, loyalty. There is always a price. "You want what from Zara?" "Nothing," Alex replied honestly. "I just want you to get better." This answer clearly puzzled her. She asked more questions about human culture, and Alex found himself explaining concepts like compassion, charity, and selfless love. These ideas seemed completely foreign to her, but she listened with intense curiosity. In return, Zara began sharing stories about her homeworld. She drew pictures of crystal cities and described planets where it was always winter. She told him about space travel and technologies that seemed like magic to Alex. She was careful not to mention her royal status or the political situation that had led to her exile. Alex learned that Zara's people live much longer than humans. She was over 300 years old, though she looked like she might be in her 20s by human standards. This explained her vast knowledge and the sadness he sometimes saw in her eyes. One day, Alex noticed that Zara seemed troubled. She kept looking up at the sky and appeared nervous. When he asked what was wrong, she struggled to find the right words in English. "Bad people may be coming," she finally managed to say. "Zara people. They not want Zara alive." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. "You mean someone is hunting you?" Zara nodded grimly. "Zara run away. They follow. Fine. Zara, they will." She drew her finger across her throat in a gesture that needed no translation. "Then we need to keep you hidden," Alex said without hesitation. "I know this forest better than anyone. We can move to a safer place." Zara stared at him in amazement. This human was willing to put himself in danger to protect her, someone he barely knew, in her entire long life. No one had ever offered to help her without wanting something in return. That night, as Alex slept peacefully nearby, Zara watched over him with a strange new feeling growing in her chest. She had spent centuries believing that power was the only thing that mattered, that showing kindness was weakness, but this human had shown her something different. Alex had no armies, no advanced technology, and no special powers, yet he had saved her life and was willing to risk everything to keep her safe. Maybe there was more to existence than ruling over others through fear. For the first time in her adult life, Zara found herself caring about someone else's well-being more than her own. She did not understand what was happening to her, but she knew that meeting Alex had changed something fundamental inside her. As she listened to the peaceful sounds of the forest, Zara made a decision. Whatever was coming for her, she would not let it hurt this kind human who had given her a second chance at life. The morning started like any other. Alex was collecting fresh water from a nearby stream while Zara practiced walking around their camp. Her leg had healed well over the past 2 weeks, and she was getting stronger every day. The silver patterns on her skin now glowed softly, which Alex had learned was a sign of good health for her people. Then everything changed in an instant. 3 streaks of light shot across the sky, moving too fast to be airplanes and too controlled to be meteors. Zara saw them first and immediately grabbed Alex's arm, her face filled with terror. "They hear," she whispered urgently. "We must go. Now." Alex dropped the water containers and quickly gathered their essential supplies. Over the past few days, he had prepared an emergency bag just in case this moment came. He trusted Zara's judgment completely. If she said they needed to run, then running was exactly what they would do. They moved through the jungle as quietly as possible, with Zara leading the way despite Alex knowing the forest better. Her alien senses could detect things that human ears and eyes could not pick up every few minutes. She would stop and listen carefully before choosing which direction to go next. Behind them, the forest began to change. Trees that had stood for decades suddenly toppled over with loud crashes. Strange blue lights flashed between the branches, and Alex could hear mechanical sounds that definitely did not belong in nature. "Who are they?" Alex asked as they paused behind a massive fallen log. Zara's expression was grim. 3 hunters. Very dangerous. They once were friends of Zara. Now they want Zara gone forever. Alex could hear the pain in her voice. Being hunted by former friends was something he could not imagine experiencing. What do they want exactly? Make sure Zara never come home. Never challenge new rulers. She looked at Alex with worry in her crimson eyes. They will hurt you too. Just for helping Zara. Let them try, Alex said firmly. We're in this together now. The hunters were unlike anything Alex had ever seen. When he caught glimpses of them through the trees, they appeared humanoid but moved with mechanical precision. Their skin was gray and metallic, and their eyes glowed with the same blue light as their weapons. They wore black armor that seemed to absorb light, making them look like walking shadows. These were not the same species as Zara. Alex realized that her empire must have included many different types of alien beings. The hunters moved through the jungle like machines, scanning everything with devices that made high-pitched beeping sounds. The first real danger came when they reached a river. Alex knew they needed to cross it to reach a cave system where they could hide. But the water was too deep and fast-moving to wade through safely. While they were looking for a safe crossing point, one of the hunters appeared on the opposite bank. The creature raised a weapon that looked like a mix between a gun and a telescope. A beam of blue energy shot across the water, missing Alex by inches and turning a nearby tree into ash instantly. Zara reacted faster than Alex thought possible. She grabbed a large rock and threw it with incredible force and accuracy. The stone hit the hunter in the chest, sending the creature flying backward into the trees. Alex stared in amazement. Zara had thrown that rock almost 100 feet like it weighed nothing. Zara getting stronger, she explained as they ran along the riverbank. Being near Alex makes Zara's power return. They found a fallen tree that formed a natural bridge across the water. As they carefully made their way across, Alex could hear the other 2 hunters getting closer. Their mechanical voices echoed through the forest as they communicated in a language that sounded like COMPUTER code. On the other side of the river, Zara led them up a steep hillside toward the caves Alex had mentioned. But the hunters were learning the terrain quickly and had somehow gotten ahead of them. When Alex and Zara reached the top of the hill, all 3 creatures were waiting for them. The lead hunter, who was slightly taller than the others, spoke in perfect English. Queen Zarathiel, your exile ends here. Surrender now, and we will make your death quick. She's not going anywhere with you, Alex said, stepping in front of Zara despite being terrified. The hunter laughed, a sound like metal grinding against metal. Foolish human, you do not understand what you are protecting. This creature has destroyed entire worlds. She has caused the death of billions. Alex felt Zara tense behind him, but he did not move. People can change. She's not the same person she used to be. Humans are so naive, the hunter replied. She will use you and then discard you like all the others. No, Zara said firmly, stepping up beside Alex. This human showed Zara something new, something better than ruling through fear. The confrontation had brought them to the edge of a cliff overlooking a massive waterfall. The sound of rushing water filled the air, and mist rose up from the rocks below. Alex realized they were trapped, hunters in front of them, and a deadly drop behind them. The lead hunter raised his weapon. "Enough talk. Both of you will die here." But before the creature could fire, something unexpected happened. Alex reached out and took Zera's hand, not out of romantic feelings, but as a gesture of complete trust and partnership. The moment their skin made contact, the silver patterns on Zera's body blazed with brilliant light. Alex felt a surge of energy flow through him, and suddenly he could sense things he had never experienced before. He could feel Zera's thoughts and emotions, and she could feel his. The connection between them created something neither had expected. Instead of Zera draining Alex's life energy, like a typical vampire, their life forces began to flow back and forth between them, making both of them stronger. The hunters stepped back in surprise as waves of power radiated from the joined pair. This was something that had never happened before in the history of Zera's people. "Impossible," the lead hunter whispered. "Symbiotic bonding with an alien species." Zera looked at Alex with wonder and gratitude. For the first time since her exile began, she felt truly powerful again. But more importantly, she was not alone. "Ready to show them what we can do together?" Alex asked. Amazed at how clear his thoughts had become, Zera smiled, and for the first time, it was not the cold smile of a queen, but the warm smile of someone who had found her true partner. "Let's do this," she replied. The final battle was about to begin. Chat controls Sonnet 4. The energy flowing between Alex and Zera was unlike anything either of them had ever experienced. Alex could feel Zera's centuries of knowledge and power, while she experienced his human emotions of hope, kindness, and determination. Together, they had become something entirely new. The lead hunter fired his weapon, but the blue energy beam simply bounced off the protective barrier that surrounded Alex and Zera. The creature's glowing eyes widened in confusion. "This is not possible. No vampire can share power without draining their host." "Maybe that's because I was never just a vampire," Zera replied, her voice stronger and more confident than it had been in weeks. "Maybe I was something more, and I just forgot what that meant." The three hunters spread out, trying to surround them, but Alex and Zera moved as one unit now, each knowing instinctively what the other was thinking. When the second hunter attacked, from the left, Alex somehow knew to duck while Zera sent a wave of energy that knocked the creature backward. "You cannot defeat all three of us," the third hunter shouted, charging forward with a weapon that looked like a glowing spear. But Zera was no longer the weakened exile who had crashed on Earth. With Alex's life force flowing through her, combined with her own renewed power, she was stronger than she had ever been as a queen. She caught the spear with her bare hands and snapped it in half like a twig. The battle was intense but brief. The hunters had expected to find a dying former queen, not a bonded pair whose combined strength far exceeded what either could achieve alone. One by one, they were defeated, their weapons destroyed, and their armor cracked. But when the fighting was over, Zera did something that surprised everyone, including herself. Instead of finishing off her former allies, she helped them to their feet. "You came here to ensure I never return to challenge the new government," she said calmly. "I want you to go back and tell them that you succeeded. Queen Zerathil is dead. She died when her ship crashed on this planet." The lead hunter stared at her in confusion. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that the person who ruled through fear and conquest no longer exists. This human showed me a different way to live, and I choose this path over the one I walked before." Alex squeezed her hand, feeling proud of how much she had grown. "What will you tell them about us?" "That I found something more valuable than Anne." "Empire," Zera replied, looking into his eyes. "I found a true partner." The hunters left in their ship, carrying the message that their former queen had chosen exile over revenge. Alex and Zera watched the three streaks of light disappear into the sky, knowing that this chapter of her old life was finally closed. But their story was just beginning. Over the following months, Alex and Zara build a new life together in a remote part of the Amazon. Using her advanced knowledge and his scientific expertise, they created a hidden research facility where they could study the connection between their two species. Zara learned to sustain herself through their energy sharing rather than taking life force from unwilling victims. Alex discovered that their bond had given him enhanced physical abilities and a much longer lifespan. More importantly, they had found a way for two completely different species to truly understand each other. Their work attracted attention from the few humans who were ready to learn about life beyond Earth. Dr. Rodriguez, an old colleague of Alex's, became the first person they trusted with their secret. Soon, a small group of scientists and philosophers gathered around them, eager to learn about the possibilities of peaceful contact between worlds. Zara also began receiving visitors from space. Word had spread quietly through certain channels that the former vampire queen had found a new way of existence, refugees from her old empire. People who had suffered under the new harsh government began seeking them out for guidance and shelter. "You know," Alex said one evening as they sat together watching the sunset, "when I first found you, I thought I was just helping an injured person. I never imagined it would lead to all this." Zara smiled, the expression so different from the cold mask she had worn as a queen. "When I closed my eyes to die in that wreckage, I thought my story was over. But when I opened them and saw you, I realized I was actually being born again into a life I never knew was possible." Their research facility became known among certain circles as a place where different species could come to learn about cooperation instead of conquest. Alex and Zara developed new technologies that could benefit both Earth and the various alien civilizations that began to make peaceful contact. The bond they shared had evolved beyond just sharing energy. They had become true partners in every sense, combining his human creativity and compassion with her vast knowledge and experience. Together, they were building bridges between worlds that had never communicated before. Years passed, and their work continued to grow. They established a network of similar facilities on other planets, each one dedicated to the idea that different species could live and work together as equals rather than rulers and subjects. Alex never aged the way normal humans did, and Zara's appearance became warmer and more alive as she learned to embrace emotions she had long suppressed. They were living proof that love and understanding could literally transform beings. At a fundamental level, one night, as they stood on their observation deck looking up at the stars, Alex asked the question that had been on his mind for months. "Do you ever miss being a queen? Having all that power and control?" Zara considered the question seriously before answering. "I thought power meant making others bow down to me. But real power is what we have now, the ability to help others become stronger instead of keeping them weak. I was never truly powerful until I learned to share instead of take." Alex nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. "When I first saw you lying in that wreckage, I just saw someone who needed help. I had no idea that helping you would end up changing my entire understanding of what's possible in this universe. Maybe that's how the best things in life happen." Zara replied, taking his hand as she had countless times before. "When we stop trying to control everything and just focus on caring for each other." As they looked up at the vast expanse of stars above them, both Alex and Zara knew that their story was far from over. They had found something that transcended species, planets, and even time itself. They had found a partnership built on mutual respect, understanding, and genuine love. The vampire queen who had once ruled through fear had learned to lead through inspiration. The quiet scientist who had just wanted to help plants had become a bridge between worlds. Together, they had discovered that the greatest power in the universe was not the ability to dominate others, but the courage to trust and be trusted in return.